To real wood cabinets. Visit the DIY Home Center outlet today and tune in to DIY Live.
That's DIY Live Saturdays right here on WOCA, The Source.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala!
Good morning. 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. It is time for News Bites. This is the segment of AM Ocala Live that we created so we could deliver the news to you in a 23-minute segment. And usually we get between 20 and 25 stories squeezed in here. We call it News Bites because we take the news, we shrink it down to bite size. It gives you an opportunity to hear a bunch of stories from around the world, the nation, and the state, and gives us an opportunity to put news back into news talk. And we will also, in addition to the story, give you the news resource that we're using, the agency that we get the news from, so that you can go online and look at the story yourself. Many times these stories are covered by more than one agency. The first one does come from ABC News, and it is regarding the cold weather that is coming our way, and I'll read it to you. It's January, and it's supposed to be cold, but temperatures plunging below zero and are expected to set records across the country as tens of millions of Americans are trapped in a deep freeze, while the East Coast is enjoying morning temperatures of up to 15 degrees above normal. The Arctic plunge is expected to reach the area by later today. The deep freeze will continue into tomorrow, when every state in the lower 48 will endure sub-freezing temperatures. Minnesota is expecting to see temperatures plunge to 25 to 35 degrees below zero today, which has prompted Governor Mark Dayton to cancel schools statewide. To put that into perspective, Anchorage, Alaska will reach a high of 34 and a low of 28 degrees today. And again, Minnesota 25 to 35 degrees below zero. Just a quick side note, based on our report from Jacksonville, the National Weather Service is saying that Marion County will be experiencing a deep freeze, a hard freeze rather, hard freeze is the wording. Hard freeze warning has been issued for Marion County and all of North and Central Florida from 11 p.m. tonight until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. An Arctic blast that I was just referring to from the story from ABC News will bring temperatures in Ocala into the low to mid 20s. 7 to 11 hours of hard freeze conditions are expected. The extended freeze could cause exposed water pipes to burst, and of course is a threat to plants, animals, and of course people. A hard freeze warning is defined as temperatures less than 27 degrees lasting longer than 2 hours, and the meteorologists are saying we can expect about 11 hours of that tonight. So very, very dangerous conditions. And if you have any extra blankets for the folks that help out the homeless, this is a good time to go deliver some blankets. I've got some we should bring to that agency.
Okay.
What's it called again? Interfaith, any of them.
Interfaith,
any of them, they all can help.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said yesterday that the United States will support Iraq's fight against al-Qaeda-linked militants who have overrun 2 cities, but will not send in American troops. Kerry said the militants are trying to destabilize the region and undermine a democratic process in Iraq, and that the U.S. is in contact with tribal leaders in Anbar province who are standing up to the terrorists. But he said this is a fight that belongs to the Iraqis. This is exactly what President Obama and the world decided some time ago when we left Iraq, so we are not obviously contemplating returning. We are not contemplating putting boots on the ground. This is their fight. We will help them in their fight, but this fight, in the end, they will have to win, and I am confident they can. Reported by CBS News.
And this story is from ABC News. A man is dead in what police say was a violent road rage incident in Pennsylvania. Timothy Davison, who is 28 years old from Poland, Maine, was traveling along I-81 in Pennsylvania when he apparently began to be pursued by a driver in another car around 2 a.m. Saturday. Rob Hicks, the public information officer for the Chambersburg Police Department in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, told ABC News that Davison called 911 and reported that a person in the other car was shooting at him. The other vehicle then rammed Davison's car, forcing him onto the snowy median where his car became stranded. After the crash, the suspect got out of the car and shot Davison multiple times in his vehicle, according to police. Davison later died at a local hospital. Wow, that is extreme road rage.
A malware attack hit Yahoo's advertising server over the last few days. It affected thousands of users in various countries. An internet security firm is quoted as saying, in a blog post, Fox It said Yahoo's servers were releasing an exploit kit that exploited vulnerabilities in Java and installed malware. Clients visiting yahoo.com received advertisements served by ads.yahoo.com, the internet security firm said. Some of the advertisements are malicious. Fox It, which is based in the Netherlands, focused on cyber defense. It estimates tens of thousands of users were affected per hour. This is another quote. Given a typical infection rate of 9%, this would result in around 27,000 infections every hour. Based on the same sample, the countries most affected by the exploit kit are Romania, Great Britain, and France. At this time, it is unclear why those countries are most effective. It is likely due to the configuration of the malicious advertisements on Yahoo, reported by CNN.
And this story from the Associated Press regarding the cold weather and its effects on us and our cars. The sub-zero cold pushing down into much of the United States is unlike cold weather felt in decades. The record-breaking cold is caused in part because of a polar vortex, which one meteorologist says will send piles of polar air into the United States. These temperatures can be dangerous, and officials in several states are warning residents to stay indoors and take precautions. And one of the things they're warning about is frostbite, probably not going to affect us here in Florida. It requires temperatures of 15 to 30 below zero. So I'll skip that one and go to the car battery part of this story. It basically says keep your car in a garage, if you have a garage, as a surefire way to ensure that your car will be able to start in the cold temperatures tomorrow morning.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo will reportedly announce this week that the Empire State will become the 21st state in the union to allow medical use of marijuana. The New York Times reported that Cuomo plans to use executive rather than legislative action to allow 20 hospitals to dispense marijuana for certain ailments, including cancer and glaucoma. He will formally announce his plans in a State of the State speech on Wednesday. The announcement would represent an about-face by Cuomo, who has previously opposed medical marijuana. Administration officials told the Times the medical marijuana policy will be more restrictive than in states like Colorado and California. It will be subject to New York Health Department standards. Other controlled substances, like narcotics, are already authorized for medical use in New York, reported by Fox News.
And this story is from CBS News. For generations of tourists and even some residents, taking a ride on a horse-drawn carriage through Central Park has been a key part of their New York City experience, along with watching a Broadway show and ice skating in Rockefeller Center. Those days, as far as the carriage ride goes, may soon be coming to an end. New York's new mayor, Bill de Blasio, says he will make good on a campaign promise to shutter what he considers to be a cruel industry, a view backed by animal rights groups. The drivers of the 200 or so carriages that have meandered around the country's first landscaped public park are crying foul, and one prominent horse veterinarian has said he found the horses to be well treated. Hal de Blasio, who was inaugurated as New York City's 109th mayor earlier this week, handles this issue, may offer some hints at how he handles economic issues. Tourists tourism is big business for the city, which attracted more than 52 million visitors who spent about $37 billion in 2012, the latest year where data is available, according to the city. Some observers question his prioritization of the horse-drawn carriage issues. De Blasio is starting his term as a dictator by dictating the banning of horse-drawn carriages in the city, and many New Yorkers are not going to like that. It was a quote from Judson Phillips in the Washington Times newspaper.
Israeli Arabs reacted strongly against Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman's call yesterday for a land swap that would include some Israeli Arab areas in any future deal with the Palestinians. Lieberman said that the land exchanges would be based roughly on the path of Route 6, which shadows the security barrier through the center of the country, and would leave many Arab towns on the eastern side of the border of a future Palestinian state. This is a quote from United Arab List Thai MK Ahmad Tibi. This is not a serious proposal. Not Israel, the Palestinian Authority, or the Americans are considering this proposal during the negotiations, but it is a plan of one person, Lieberman. And even if the proposal were raised, it would be rejected. This is reported by the Jerusalem Post.
And from the Associated Press, Hall of Fame broadcaster Jerry Coleman, a former second baseman for the New York Yankees, who interrupted his professional career to fly as a Marine Corps pilot in World War II and Korea, died yesterday, according to the San Diego Padres. He was 89 years old. Coleman spent more than 4 decades with the Padres as a broadcaster. He managed the team in 1980. Padres president Mike D. said Coleman died at a hospital yesterday afternoon. He said the team was notified by Coleman's wife, Maggie.
Millions of patients are wrongly diagnosed with depression and needlessly given antidepressant drugs when they are simply sad. This is according to a new study. Antidepressants are being handed out to people who are bereaved, suffering sexual problems, or who are unable to sleep. The number of people diagnosed with mental illnesses such as depression has doubled since 2002. It is believed more than 5 million people are now labeled depressed or suffering anxiety in the UK. Chris Dowrick, professor of primary medical care at Liverpool University, claims a new report that up to half of these patients have been misdiagnosed, reported by The Telegraph.
And from the Associated Press, 20-year-old Nicholas Simmons disappeared from his parents' house in a small upstate New York town on New Year's Day, leaving behind his wallet, cell phone, and everything else. 4 days later, an Associated Press photographer looking for a way to illustrate unusually cold weather snapped a photograph as he warmed himself on a steam grate a few blocks from the U.S. Capitol. Paul and Michelle Simmons saw the photograph in USA Today Sunday morning newspaper after it was brought to their attention through a Facebook page to set up to help find their 20-year-old son, according to police and family and friends. While questions remain unanswered about why the young man left and how he ended up in Washington as a homeless man, his mother expressed her relief on Facebook that her son had been located. Wow. Some photographer just happened to take a picture of him sleeping on the streets.
Yeah. Movie star Steven Seagal told a Phoenix television station that he is considering running for governor of Arizona. Seagal, age 61, told KNXV-TV in Phoenix this weekend that he had talked about the possibility with Joe Arpaio, the influential and sometimes controversial sheriff of Maricopa County. Seagal said while he was considering a foray into politics, but also had other priorities on his plate. Like Arpaio, Seagal said border security was the top problem facing the United States, reported by UPI.
And from the Associated Press, Pope Francis has made another gesture to Catholics who have fallen away from their faith, saying he respects them, but that God is waiting for them. Francis made the comments this morning after he celebrated Epiphany, a major Catholic feast day that recalls the visit to the infant Jesus Christ by 3 kings. The pontiff said, quote, "I would like to tell all those who feel far from God and the church, and I say this respectfully to those who are afraid or indifferent, The Lord loves you and wants you to be part of his people and does so with great respect and love, unquote. Francis has made a priority of reaching out to atheists and Catholics marginalized by their church.
And this is another story about Pope Francis. He has announced his first trip as pontiff to the Holy Land on May 24th to May 26th. He will visit Jerusalem, Bethlehem in the West Bank, and the Jordanian capital Amman. He made the announcement during his weekly Sunday blessing in Vatican City. The visit is so far his only foreign trip planned for 2014. He said he would hold a meeting with the representatives of all Christian churches in the Middle East in Jerusalem. His pilgrimage in the footsteps of Jesus Christ has a double significance, and this was reported by the BBC.
And this from the Associated Press. In at least 4 states that have nurtured the nation's energy boom, hundreds of complaints have been made about well water contamination from oil or gas drilling, and pollution was confirmed in a number of them, according to a review that casts doubt on industry suggestions that such problems rarely happen. The Associated Press requested data on drilling-related complaints in Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and Texas, and found major differences in how the states report such problems. Texas provided the most detail, while the other states provided only general outlines, and while the confirmed problems represent only a tiny portion of the thousands of oil and gas wells drilled each year in the United States, the lack of detail in some state reports could help fuel public confusion and mistrust. The Associated Press found that Pennsylvania received 398 complaints in 2013, alleging that oil or natural gas drilling polluted or otherwise affected private water wells, compared with 499 complaints in 2012. The Pennsylvania complaints can include allegations of short-term diminished water flow, as well as pollution from stray gas or other substances. More than 100 cases of pollution were confirmed over the past 5 years, blaming much of it on fracking.
Afghanistan's booming narcotics trade risks splintering the country into a fragmented criminal state if the government and its Western allies do not step up efforts to tackle opium production. A senior UN official has warned. Opium farming in Afghanistan, the world's main producer of the drug, hit a record high this year, with farmers harvesting a crop worth nearly $1 billion to them, and far more to the traffickers, who take about 4/5 of the profit. Jean-Luc Lemahue, outgoing head of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime in Afghanistan, believes opium production is likely to soar beyond this year's record levels before it falls, and that the transformation of the country's corrupt economy will take up to 2 decades, reported by The Guardian.
And this from ABC News. To neutralize the most dangerous chemicals stockpiled by Syria in a weapons program that brought global attention to a violent civil war, the international community will rely on a massive ship currently docked in Portsmouth, Virginia, the motor vessel Cape Ray, a transport and humanitarian response vessel owned by the U.S. Maritime Administration. The plan, announced in November by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and agreed to by Syria, calls for President Bashar al-Assad's regime to move Syria's most dangerous chemical weapons components, already mixed mustard gas in liquid form and a precursor to sarin gas, to the port of Latakia and out of the country onto Norwegian and Danish ships. The process is behind schedule due to fighting in Syria, according to ABC News.
Gene Sperling, the director of President Barack Obama's National Economic Council, said yesterday that Obama is offering congressional Republicans a grand bargain on jobs. He has said that he would be willing to do corporate tax reform that lowers rates to 28%, simplifies taxes for small businesses, but do it together with a major infrastructure investment. In his budget proposal last year, Obama called for $50 billion in additional short-term federal spending on infrastructure projects such as bridges, highways, and mass transit systems, as well as the creation of a national infrastructure bank to make loans to such projects, reported by MSNBC.
And the next story is from ABC News. Democrats have pointed to Kentucky's state health exchange as an Obamacare success story, but Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky said on This Week, the TV show, that the system system is a mess, describing how his son was incorrectly enrolled into Medicaid and saying he's unsure if his own family is currently covered. He went on to say, quote, "The other day I actually tried to get my son signed up through the Kentucky Exchange. You know that the Democrats have said is so good, and I have here my son's Medicaid card." Paul said that to George Stephanopoulos yesterday, waving the card, saying, quote, "We didn't try to get him Medicaid. I'm trying to pay for his insurance, but they automatically enrolled him in Medicaid," unquote.
Valuations in the Standard & Poor's 500 index increased by the most since the financial crisis last year, as 460 stocks rose, more than any year since at least 1990. Neither are reasons to bet against equities now. While Wall Street strategists are the most cautious in almost a decade after the broadest U.S. rally on record, sent price-earnings ratios up 19%. Expanding multiples have preceded advances twice as often as they have retreats. This is data that is compiled by Bloomberg. Since 1936, the S&P 500 has risen 69% of the time following quarters when valuations widened. The average return is 14% in years after more than 400 constituents climbed, according to this data compiled by Strategist Research Partners and reported by Bloomberg.
And this story from the Las Vegas Sun: a 17-member class of mostly wounded veterans has taken up a new fight, putting away child predators. Several in the class have seen some of the fiercest fighting of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. 29-year-old Oscar Zepeda served 9 tours before a hand grenade and nearly 24 medical operations forced him to find another career. The veterans were given about 11 weeks of intensive computer and legal training before being assigned to an Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office. The veterans mostly work in a lab and scour the computers that agents confiscate while conducting a search warrant. The wounded veterans say they want to put away the child predators.
The former Secretary of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, said yesterday that she is voicing her opposition to clemency or a plea deal being offered to Edward Snowden. He is the former National Security Agency contractor who leaked thousands of documents on the agency's surveillance operations to media outlets, including The Guardian. Also yesterday, the Republican Senator Rand Paul, who has advocated a softer line on Snowden than many in his party, said he thought the whistleblower probably would come home for a few years in prison. Earlier this week, the New York Times published an editorial calling for Snowden to be allowed to return to the United States. Snowden is currently in Russia, where he was granted 1 year's asylum, reported by The Guardian.
And from the Associated Press, Iraq's prime minister this morning urged residents of his country and tribes of Fallujah to expel al-Qaeda militants from this western city to avoid an all-out battle, remarks that may signal an imminent military move to retake the former insurgent stronghold. Nouri al-Malikai's message came as dozens of families were fleeing from Fallujah, 40 miles west of the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, in fear of a major showdown. Iraqi government troops have surrounded the city, which lies in the western Sunni-dominated Anbar province and which was overrun by al-Qaeda fighters last week. Malikai did not say how he expects Fallujah residents and pro-government tribesmen to push the militants out. In his message broadcast over state TV, al-Malikai also urged Iraqi troops to avoid targeting Fallujah's residential areas. Along with Fallujah, al-Qaeda fighters last week also took control of most parts of the provincial city of Ramadi. Iraqi troops have since been trying to dislodge militants from the group known as the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, from the two cities. Yesterday, fighting in Anbar killed at least 34 people, including 22 soldiers.
A plane taxiing after landing skidded off a runway at John F. Kennedy International Airport and slid onto snow yesterday. No injuries were reported. The Bombardier CRJ jet, coming from Toronto, landed at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. It was turning off the runway onto a taxiway when it slid in slippery conditions. An official at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, the agency that runs the airport, said 35 passengers were aboard the Delta Connection flight. New York City was hit hard by the first severe winter storm of 2014. and was still in the grip of sub-freezing weather on Sunday when the incident occurred. Freezing rain is forecast for later in the day, reported by Reuters.
And just to recap the first story, remember, a hard freeze is predicted tonight for Marion County from 11 p.m. till 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. The hard freeze bringing temperatures here below 27 degrees, maybe even as low as 20 degrees. And the meteorologists in Jacksonville, the National Weather Service, warning all of us to be sure we take care of the things that could be damaged by the cold, including our exposed water pipes, our plants, our pets, and anything else that might be out there. All right, that's our opportunity to give you as much news as we can in 23 minutes or so. How many stories did we get today, Robin?
25.
All right, 25 stories. We'll take a little break and we'll be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. Some of the coldest air in decades is testing the patience and resilience of some of the coldest places in America. Temperatures have plummeted to more than 50 below in parts of North Dakota. Schools are closed in the entire state of Minnesota. Congress is back from its holiday recess to face a number of big issues, including the probable confirmation of Janet Yellen as the first female Fed chairman and the potential resumption of benefits to the long-term unemployed. The FBI is investigating the placing of a hidden camera aboard an American Airlines cross-country flight. It was found taped to a bathroom wall, and passengers say disguised to look like a flash drive. The plane made a safe emergency landing in Kansas City. A new study suggests airline boarding time could be cut significantly by letting people board based on the number of carry-on bags they have, rather than where they're seated. Researchers say it could save the airlines up to $10 million a year. Singer Kesha has checked into rehab to treat an eating disorder, telling fans she's looking forward to loving herself exactly as she is. This is ABC News.
The fact is, you can't make spring hurry up and get here, but you can make sure you're good and ready for it. Get $1,000 off our SX850i Gator utility vehicles and $500 off one-family tractors with a purchase of 2 John Deere or Frontier brand implements. Most offers end February 3rd. Stop by your John Deere dealer for details.
Ag Pro Companies is your local John Deere dealer. For details on all 25 of our locations, visit agprocompanies.com or myjohndeeredealer.com.
When I need to save my business a few bucks, this happens.
Office Max has a coupon for 20% off almost everything.
Okay, but what I really need is a new logo.
Office Max can help you design your brand identity and create business cards, letterhead, and more.
Great. Now about all these files.
Office Max has storage solutions that are just your style.
Nothing can stop me now.
That untied shoelace might.
If you need it for your business, you'll find it at Office Max, now at 20% off. Restrictions apply. 20% off on select products only. Go to officemax.com for coupon and details. Offer ends January 11th.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Wear it, Florida. Mostly cloudy today with a shower or two around. It'll be windy at times, especially this afternoon. The high 68 to 74. Then partly cloudy, breezy, and turning much colder tonight. Lows ranging from 28 inland to 34 along the coast. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds, breezy and chilly. The high 46 to 52. And Wednesday, clouds and some sunshine with a chance of a shower along the coast. The high 64 to 70. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm Joe Lundberg.
Are you wasting hundreds or thousands of dollars on termite retreat fees? If you're not with Turner Pest Control, you probably are. Turner Pest Control offers the industry's only termite and pest control package that never charges retreat fees, ever. You can get started today for only $99. This is a value of $500 or more. This includes treatments, installation of monitoring stations, quarterly pest control, and a lifetime guarantee, all for an unbelievable low $99. Even if you have another pest control provider, visit turnerpest.com to find out how you can avoid paying those high termite retreat fees.
Stay informed on everything going on in the Villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the Villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Employees who work at least 11 hours a day are nearly 3 times more likely to experience depression compared with people who work a regular 8-hour day. Our metabolic rate drops roughly 10% from early adulthood to late middle age. So a slice of cherry pie at age 40 will affect you a lot more than it did at 25.